Hi together. This is the third edition of the very successful new startup pitches from Supplytechs, which is a network from all the startups around procurement. And we are here together in the procurement field in the times of crisis after crisis, and we're looking for solutions, which is important for us to have it easy at hand, startups which can help us and people which can help us. And this is something where a network can help you. And this is a network of Supplytechs working together and for the solutions to help you on your field. And do you have also the feeling that procurement is in the first line in the field of when the question comes to what kind of solutions do we have, like supply chains are broken or the financial crisis is the increase in costs is there. So how can we get help there? And therefore we have 7 startups today to tell you how to work that. And we start with James. James Meads is the first keynote we have for you. And James is originally from UK, but he is, I would say, a navigator in this complicated field of startups. And we are looking for a first 5 minutes from you to why is it so important to be a navigator and have an overview in the complicated field of procurement startups.
Yeah, thank you, Stephan, and a real pleasure to be here actually, because I really love what Supplytechs are doing to try and bring the smaller emerging procurement tech startups together to sort of share knowledge and to grow and prosper with each other, because it's such a busy space and often it can feel hard being dwarfed by some of the bigger companies that tend to sponsor everything. When it comes to conferences and events. So I think this is great. It really complements also what I'm doing with procurementsoftware.site. If anyone is watching this and hasn't come across us, we are a directory of procurement software solutions. It's completely free to use. And anyone on the buy side can go in there and look and find procurement technology solutions with multiple different search criteria in less than 5 minutes. It's just a few mouse clicks, no complicated white papers, no pay to play, no jargon. We really want to make things simple. Simplicity is what we're all about. I also host a weekly podcast called the ProcureTech Podcast, and it's great to see actually that 4 of the companies that are pitching today have actually been guests on the show. But why am I here? Well, hopefully to talk a little bit about what I see as being trends in the procurement tech space, both if you're a solutions provider or if you're a potential buyer of technology. So the first one is, I think that investment in procurement tech will continue to be driven by the necessity to fight the inflationary or stagflationary environment that we find ourselves in, but also to improve operational efficiency, because a lot of the requirements and bureaucracy and legislation around ESG is going to create a lot of additional workload for procurement. And to give us space to do that, we're clearly going to have to free up some resource. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is to help to automate things like P2P and some of the more administrative processes that really highly paid procurement for professionals shouldn't be doing, and technology can be a catalyst to help us do that. Number 2 is that I'm seeing that best of breed procurement tech solutions now are really starting to diversify and add more features. I think part of that is because in their own right, they are now really trying to compete with some of the bigger suites and say, hey, we can be your single solution, and maybe you just need to plug in the odd 1 or 2 other solutions to communicate with us, but use us as a central platform. So for example, we're seeing contract management modules starting to be included in things like SRM tools. We're seeing vendor master data coming into source to pay applications, and we're seeing spend analytics solutions, for example, starting to offer things like performance and project management as natural evolutions. And I think that will continue to develop as best of breed solutions move away from being very narrow and deep in one solution to branch out into other areas. The other thing that I'm seeing, and I like to think that I sort of saw this ahead of the curve with what I did with my website, but I'm really starting to see now more solutions that are starting to focus on smaller businesses and on the mid-market. What I feel in the past years is that a lot of procurement tech solutions have been guilty of what I call chasing the hottest girl at school, which are enterprise level or Fortune 500 companies as their customers. And what they're realizing is just the sales cycle is just really, really long. And there are only a certain amount of customers that you can go after, all of them of which tend to have very specific requirements. So I think the mid-market really is the next frontier. It's one of the reasons why I developed what I developed to provide a really easy to use solution for buyers that just don't have the time to read complex white papers. I also see that VC funding is going to be a lot more scarce going forward. And I think particularly for some of you that are presenting today, or perhaps some of you that are watching that are considering investing into procurement tech, one thing that I really think that you need to be asking your solutions providers is evidence that they have steady, stable, profitable growth. Because if they're just chasing after the next VC round to spend a load more money on marketing and hiring people, that's not a stable business model in a downturn. If the dry powder from the VCs dries up and there are no more funding rounds that can easily be obtained. And then finally, especially on the buy side, I really, really, really encourage you to ask questions about ease of implementation and return on investment and user experience. And I think a lot of the solutions that are presenting today have really focused on that and put that front and center, unlike some of the legacy suites and legacy brands out there that have very old tech stacks. And sometimes, the user interface feels like it was designed on a Friday afternoon. That's something that's going to be key now with the Amazonization of the internet, and especially with millennials being more the decision makers now. They want to see good user experience. They want to see quick implementation. Gone are the days of 6 to 9 months of implementation, especially for mid-market businesses. So those are the 5 trends that I see, particularly now as we go into, let's say, a challenging economic period. And I'm personally really excited to see a lot of what the startups have got to offer today, having known a lot of them personally. And with that, Stephan, over to you, and looking forward to the event.
Perfectly. Thank you very much for that words. And what I got personally from you is make it easy. I just pick it up. It is just a few mouse clicks, be in an efficient way, your solution, have an easy onboarding to use the new solutions. And of course, highly payment procurement people should not work in that matter where technology can support them in the perfect way. First, startup round. Thank you very much, James, for that. First startup round now for the next 5 minutes is Nick. Nick is coming from Canopy. And Canopy is another startup and is coming also from London. So we are a little bit in the UK today. And you have a wonderful startup at hand, so where you can do your supplier management a little bit. And when I think on supplier side, I only hear in these days supply chain is broken, and this is the biggest risk in our days. What is your solution having at hand with this technology?
Well, Stephan, thanks very much for the introduction, and wonderful to be here. Thanks to all of the companies involved in Supplytech to make this possible. And fundamentally, the answer to that question, we believe, is data. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight through this quick presentation as to how we at Canopy help you to build agility into your supply chain through the use of data. So Stephan says, my name is Nick Vacher. I'm the CEO of Canopy. And I think, it would be the understatement of the century to say that we live in uncertain times. I think we are all experiencing that, in everything that we're doing. But I think the key message here is this is not temporary. Let's just look back at what's happened over the last 20 years, bookended by 9/11, which sort of kicked the millennium off. We then had the 2007 financial crisis that sparked a host of new regulations that came into the market, Sarbanes-Oxley, GDPR, what's happened since with the corporate scandals, Wirecard, Enron, the LIBOR scandal. We've seen more expensive natural disasters, the most expensive natural disasters we've ever seen, from the Japan tsunami to hurricanes, Harvey, and so on. We've then had Brexit here in the UK. That's affected the whole of Europe. We've just had COVID. We've now got the Ukraine. And, finally, we're all staring at the prospect of stagflation across Europe and probably the US. So this is an incredibly uncertain time to be trying to build a global supply chain. So the answer to this is, well, ultimately, we need to find a way to be more agile. If you look at the Deloitte CPO report from 2021, that was its front cover. That was its primary message. But what does that actually mean in the context of business? What is agility when it comes to running a supplier operation? And at Canopy, we believe that means three main things. First off, it's about visibility. You need to have awareness of what's going on in your supply chain. If you don't have that awareness, then you're unable to react. You're unable to respond to changes that you're seeing quickly enough. The second component is ultimately to add in adaptability. You've got to allow the operators in the business to get on and make decisions, to take action when they see something happening, so that you as a business can react to those situations and move much more quickly. But ultimately, you've also got to make sure you've got a basis of control. You've got to make sure that the actions that they are taking adhere to a degree of verification of minimum standards, so that you're following due process and you're making sure that you're operating your business in the right way. But the challenge that we have in procurement and finance functions in particular is that the data set we're now dealing with has expanded massively. This is so much more than just being about spend. There are so many factors that make up a decision about which is the best supplier to use in a particular situation. And those factors carry different weightings, which will evolve from selection to selection decision. But the tool set that we're all working with fundamentally has remained the same. We're all still plagued by poor quality supplier data. I don't know a single business that isn't. We are all still overly reliant on manual processes. And fundamentally, as we're seeing, the skill shortage and under-resourcedness in our teams is now really, really hurting us. And if you are a smaller business, if you're not one of these enterprise companies that can afford to effectively buy your way out of these problems, if you're a smaller business, these problems are exacerbated significantly. And ultimately, that's where Canopy comes in. But just before we dive into us, I wanted to just give you a few quick stats. This is not a problem that you can now ignore. The cost of doing nothing can, in some cases, be catastrophic. And I wanted to take you back to something that happened in the UK in 2020. One of the biggest online fashion retailers, Boohoo.com, got caught out because one of their suppliers at a factory in Leicester that manufactured some of their clothing was caught to be in breach of UK modern slavery regulations. And ultimately what happened is it directly hit Boohoo.com as a brand. Their share price plummeted 50% in the space of a month. If you look at where they are today, they're about 80% down on where they were. That's 4 billion in value wiped off a business in the space of 18 months because one of their suppliers breached modern slavery regulations. That is a phenomenal situation and something that we just cannot ignore today. So the solution is Canopy. What is Canopy? Canopy is a supplier management platform designed for small procurement teams that puts all of your supplier data in one place and then introduces automations and business rules to remove the administrative burden from your supplier operations. And in doing so, we enable you to become more agile. So how do we do that? Well, the first step is to deliver visibility. We come back to our framework. Visibility by bringing all of your stakeholders together around a common, single, trusted vendor master record. We are all looking at the same data. We all have live access to what is going on in our supply chain so that we have awareness of what's going on. The next step is that we introduce a governance framework that empowers operators on the ground to make decisions while adhering to centrally defined thresholds for factors such as risk, compliance, scope 3 emissions, and so on. So you've got some degree of control around what's going on. But finally, what we do is we back that up with a set of robust controls by automating your workflows, establishing risk-based pathways to deal with certain supplier situations, and where you do see breaches of governance and breaches of compliance, that we can automatically trigger activity to respond to that. So, for example, triggering purchase order or payment holds within ERP systems if you see a supplier step out of line and needing to correct a situation. Now, at Canopy, we've developed this software out of a number of years in our previous experience of building bespoke supplier management platforms for some very, very large businesses. And our customers now are using this to help manage data across their ERP systems, to control risk in their supply chains, to gain visibility of their commercial terms, and ultimately to build visibility and agility into their supplier operations. And if you'd like to find out more, then I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me, either connect, send me a DM, send me a post, or my email address is on the screen, and I'd love to have a conversation.
Thank you, Nick. It was so good. What I learned is that it is not a temporary thing. We all stay in the crisis, and this is the new normal, which we say. And so to solve these crises, the first important step is to have an awareness about it, to be aware of something. Then you can start to change everything. And there is a lot of data out there about the supplier market. And thank you, Nick, so far, because we have now our second startup, which is Kovalyze from Munich. And Christian is there, and he is an expert in all these data, in these experts of insights. So when I think about big data things and having an insight in data, which is the important thing to start things, then I learned from your side there is an instant should cost pricing. What is an instant should cost pricing? I never heard that.
An instant should cost pricing is the prediction of the price of a new part based on the design of the historic spend. So that's the basic principle. So, and that also explains what we are doing in a nutshell. We are not analyzing procurement spend for the 12th or for the 13th time. We dig into the PLM systems, into the technical part of the category, and extract the insights there. And why are we doing that? Because negotiations are the most important and time-consuming activities in procurement. It's not only that a negotiation is a time frame of several months. If you ruin a negotiation in the preparation, and if the result of a negotiation is bad, it can ultimately lead to a significant negative impact for your business. So if you end up in a lot of bad contracts with your key suppliers and you pay too much for the parts that you source, then you have a real big problem, not only on the supply chain security side, but from the cost position. And that is why we focus on the technical specifications. And we believe that a negotiation does not only start with sending out an RFP to more than 2 suppliers. A negotiation is starting in the design phase, in the early discussion with the engineers. So as Stephan was mentioning before, when an engineer is sitting down and making a new part construction, then at this point, he should have a solid feedback of what the price of his new design would be. Because at that point, he can change the design and lead into a more cost-effective design. And no one in procurement doubts that sending out cost-effective designs results in significant cost reduction rather than sending out very expensive designs and then give procurement the task to negotiate this expensive design down to a reasonable price. That is why we believe procurement has to be involved in the very early design phase, and that is why procurement needs technical data and be sufficiently supplied with technical information to effectively influence engineers out there in the business. And how are we doing that? So kovalyze is providing detailed price value analytics for every article in every category. So no matter if it's mechanics, electronics, services, or logistics. Our biggest customer currently has uploaded 30 different categories, and that ranges from mechanic, from electronic, from services down to packaging. And so the value of kovalyze is not limited to any category. So whenever it comes to big data, whenever it comes to many different technical specifications for many articles, that's where the strength of a software comes from, and that's where the impact of big data lies. And we automate and optimize the negotiation preparation for every category manager. And how are we doing that? We provide not only the technical analysis, we provide additionally detailed strengths and weaknesses on your supply base. It's not only that we can tell that a supplier has a specific price markup compared to his competition, we also can say what is the saving potential for each of the supplier in detail, not on an overall spend, but in detail for every single article. And that results in something completely new that we are going to launch in September 2020. So as we already have all the technical data from our customers in their categories and match this technical data with the procurement spend, we now will add up additional external data to enrich the data set even more. And we're doing that, or we already started to combine with Chain AI. They are experts in raw material monitoring, so that on kovalyze, beginning in September, you will have the possibility to do a detailed index pricing. So when, for example, you're buying wireless harnesses that have a high index in copper, Chain AI is monitoring the copper price in kovalyze. What we are also providing, or do already provide for our existing customers, is a new supplier search. So we have the functionality based on the profiles from the existing supplier to conduct new supplier searches in every region, in every industry, and in every company size. What we also, because sustainability is becoming so important for the procurement side, we incorporate also sustainability data on all suppliers in kovalyze. So it will be integrated by an API from a data supplier, so that all suppliers in kovalyze will automatically have sustainability ratings and criteria as an additional source. And what we now will also do is going into an artificial intelligence powered supplier matching. Now that is really rocket science, because that is one of the key problems that every company is facing. When you have a new part, it's not only that you want to know who is the best supplier out there. If you get an automated recommendation based on the historic spend and based on the evaluations that a supplier has in kovalyze, then you can be absolutely sure that in this very specific technical design, this supplier recommended by kovalyze is one of the best out there in the market.
Christian,
which gives you, yeah.
Thank you very much. I think this is a wonderful presentation from you. And what I learned is we in the procurement department, we are in the best position to create savings, and with your solution we are also save time, because it's such a time-consuming preparation of negotiation, and we can avoid that with your solution at hand. Thank you very much for that. And
thank you.
We have also in the next row 5 minutes with Elena. Elena is from Inhaber, and she is from a startup, and they are maybe in, let's say, the line right behind negotiations, because behind the negotiation there might be a contract, and if you have a contract, you have to do something with the contract, and that is something you need a good solution, and very good solution. This is something which I learned from Elena. They work with blockchain and artificial intelligence. Why is that so, Elena?
Yes, thank you, Stephan, for the introduction. And exactly as you're saying, we are in the background working with contracts. And why do we use blockchain, artificial intelligence, to give our customers, our users, the highest security level? As we are dealing, of course, with highly secure information which no one else should see besides the ones who have the right to see the contracts. The security level is very important. My name is Elena Meček, and together with a team of 13 people, we are revolutionizing the way we used to work with documents and contracts. And in general, what's the challenge, what's the topic we are dealing with? It is the overload of documents, of paper, of contracts. And as big as a company, as long as it exists, the mountains of papers increase as well. So what we have realized by talking to our customers and potential customers is the challenge of having just a lot of contracts without having a central contract repository. We saw even companies which have to ask their suppliers to get the contract negotiated with the supplier in order to check the information, because there's just no order, there's chaos within the contract and contract management. Let's say a company decides to digitize, to put all documents at one central place, to manage the contracts. It is, of course, very time consuming. So someone has to sit down, has to write down the metadata to the contracts in order to know exactly when is the due date, when is the delivery date, what actually has been negotiated within the contract. Also, what often happens is the manual deadline management. So sometimes companies have an Excel sheet in order to manage and to see all the deadlines negotiated, the contract ending, etc. Sometimes specific employees are just putting reminders for themselves in their Outlook calendars, which is all a very manual process and highly error heavy. Yeah, if one employee forgets to put an important deadline into his calendar, no one will realize, no one will react on it. Complex signature processes in regard with contract management. A contract has been negotiated already. It is already ready for signature, but it's long lasting. To get a signature, to get the contract signed, just takes sometimes even few weeks. And finally, with the increasing digitalization, we see also the increase in cyber attacks. And of course, dealing with contract management, it's highly dangerous for a company if someone else gets access to the information written within the contracts. And that's where inhaber comes into the game. So we bring order into your paper cows. We have created a highly encrypted, highly secure contract repository with the possibility to create data rooms, to share information within the company, but also with the contract partners outside your company, so that you know always that your contracts are in a GDPR compliant way stored and shared only with the people who need to see the information. We also have artificial intelligence to analyze contracts. So let's say you want to digitalize, you want to upload documents. We have automatic keywording so that you know exactly what is the contract about, when is the contract ending, when should you start the renegotiation phase, etc. And digital signature as part of the solution. Because we say you should not need a third provider to sign the contracts and then move the contract again to your contract folders to get the contract in order. we have it all in one place, a holistic solution. So you see exactly who has actually access to your contracts. The digital signature is very unique in that sense because we provide the security that your information cannot be changed on our platform. That's why we can actually sign any file format, let's say an Excel sheet, which usually would have to be saved first as a PDF file before being able to send it out. We can sign already as it is as an Excel sheet. And just with 3 steps, you get a fully signed contract. And our customers say that it took few weeks to get a signature, to get an agreement done. Now with inhaber, it takes few days and even few hours sometimes. The statistics show with help of digital signature, you get 20% faster contract approvals and a 70–80% increase in productivity. We have a very highly secure contract repository with a total end-to-end encryption, which also makes us unique compared to our competitors. Goldbeck is one of our customers who is using us for over 1.5 years already, and they like especially the intuitive user interface. It's very easy to start using inhaber. It's a heterogeneous contract management solution so that you don't need any other additional software in order to manage your contracts. So the advantage is that you just can enjoy your coffee and relax while getting a total transparency, total overview of your contracts, your deadlines, and tamper-proof and immutable information. Thank you very much.
You.
And I'm very open for discussion. And you see my email address here. So please ask any questions.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you for this wonderful show again. And again was here the increase of productivity within the procurement department if you use startup solutions to help you for the job you have to do. And having the values in a contract at hand, the timelines and the other values which are in there, it's a very helpful tool that you have here at hand.
Thank you.
Next startup is for us coming from Andreas. Andreas is not only the founder of MySupply, he's also the founder of Supplytechs, which is providing this wonderful show today. And he is also a very big networker, but his heart is really still playing for MySupply, and MySupply is helping people in the procurement department to getting into a more effective way of sourcing. Why is it so difficult, Andreas, to bring people just away from doing it manually by themselves like traditional ways in the last years? Why is it so difficult for the people in the procurement to let it flow and just bring it into a smart solution?
Thank you, Stephan, for the nice intro and for the kudos. I try to do my very best. So, of course, it's very reasonable to do a lot of negotiations in a manual way, especially when it's pretty complicated and when there's a lot of different things which needs to be considered. But this is not always the case. And what I would like to do right now is tell you a bit about what does MySupply do, especially in terms of automated negotiation, and when does this really make sense? So, of course, nowadays, we already talked about this. It's really difficult times. So we see a big inflation. We see, of course, everybody is running around in procurement with a big bucket of water and putting it into the fire because everything is just burning. And the buyers are very much focused on, save basically the supply chain for their strategic goods. And this is, of course, pretty crucial those days. But nevertheless, there's a lot of stuff out there which is not even negotiated at all, or maybe not negotiated in a really proper way. often up to 100,000 euros, there's not really a negotiation. And MySupply comes into the game exactly for this area. We focus on the part of the tactical procurement, for the tactical sourcing mainly, to automate what happens after the tendering process. And just looking into what is the potential value for companies, this is pretty huge, because there's a lot of tactical spend often out there, which is not negotiated, and very often it turns up to more than 1 million or just even a few million euros as savings, which can be very easily be realized. And I'm gonna tell you a bit more about how. MySupply delivers a solution which is on the one hand available as a complete sourcing solution. So meaning, we have the complete tendering process, the RFP, we can invite suppliers, we can even scout for suppliers of about more than 60 million suppliers. But we also extend existing sourcing solution with a plugin. And so I'm pretty happy that it's just a few days ahead of us, but we will be represented then in the SAP store with our first SAP Ariba sourcing plugin. And the plugin continues basically the process. So after you did the sourcing, so the tendering process, basically in your sourcing suite, whatever it is, if it's HANA, if it's Ariba or whatever, we continue with MySupply for helping during the evaluation. Then we also fetch data from our partners like EcoTrack for sustainability scores. And then the MySupply magic begins. So what we first of all do is put the different offers into reasonable lots. This means we bundle items that could be very well negotiated in one bundle and make use of these bundling effects. And then MySupply suggests for each of these bundles how to negotiate them best. So we have an AI-driven engine which works mainly with game theory that suggests, okay, what is the best negotiation method here? And then we directly execute the negotiation as such as well directly after that. So pretty much this concludes the process. And so we have the chance to help a lot at companies where also their sourcing suites do not really deliver an automated flow, which nearly none of them does, and really help to get the sourcing to the next level here. So MySupply looks a bit like what you see on the left side. So we have the different lots, which is negotiation 1, negotiation 2, and then we have for each of these lots, you see, for example, there's a Dutch negotiation. For example, suggested for another one, we have a first price seal bid, but there's various different ways of negotiations. We use bot negotiations and other very easily made also auction types that helps to make it very easy to do these kind of negotiations. We have a big roadmap in front of us. So we're starting with our complete sourcing solution right now, heading more into negotiation plugins for, on the one hand, existing procurement solutions where we directly integrate into, but we'll also create individual solutions for customers. And from there on, we will continue with further plugins, with further developments, so driving the negotiations fully autonomous in the next step. And then even after that, the sourcing on the next level, so that a replenish sprint from SAP can run into a fully autonomous tendering process as well. It's very important for us that you see, of course, the big advantages, especially for the plugin. So for the plugin, so even so, when we're talking with very, very big customers, we just have implementation times of 15 minutes. So this is pretty quickly implemented. And we also offer completely no risk models. So that means we just have also the option, if customers want to, just have a pay for access option with our plugins. So we just get a certain share of the savings generated. And so when we talk about the area where there's no negotiation at all, we create a value and we create savings where there never has been any savings. We can make them, of course, more sustainable during the negotiations by helping with these negotiation sustainability scorings that we're using, and of course we are very much GDPR compliant. So all of this helps, of course, for our customers to really bring these negotiations, the smaller negotiation, the tactical negotiation, to the next level, and save more than 11% during these negotiations. Thank you so much for your time and for your patience with me. And yeah, please contact me if you have any questions, and have fun with the next speakers during the time left during this conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andreas. And I remember James from the first keynote today. He says it's important to have an easy access and easy onboarding, and 15 minutes onboarding for your solution is definitely row number 1 in the field of onboarding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephan.
We come to next startup, which is Prewave. Prewave, what a wonderful name. You are even before the wave, so it's a Prewave. What is the Prewave in your name? Is it also a program? Is it a slogan? What makes it so special to be a Prewave company in terms of supplier?
Thanks, James. So Prewave means being one step ahead of supply chain risks, and that is what we do for our customers, and that is what I want to share with you today in the next 5 minutes. So Prewave was founded in 2017 as a spin-off from the University of Technology Vienna, and at this point we have 45 employees and more than 50 customers. You can see some of them here. And what our customers really have in common is that they have incredibly complex and oftentimes intransparent supply chains, thousands of suppliers distributed all around the world. But their risk management in many cases is still quite static. They pull the occasional credit report or financial check, or they run self-assessments and on-site audits, but all of those are really just snapshots and point-in-time information. And they lack insight into the real question in risk management today, and that is, what is really happening in my supply chain right now? And here we are talking about disruption risks like labor unrest or accidents or cyber attacks, but also ESG and sustainability risks like air pollution at suppliers, or in the worst case, child labor. Lacking awareness around those types of risks can have serious consequences. It can lead to production stoppages, it can lead to reputational damages, and it can also lead to penalties over non-compliance with recent supply chain legislation, like the Supply Chain Act in Germany. Now at Prewave, we started working on this problem and how can we monitor suppliers in real time back in 2012 at the University of Technology Vienna. And the breakthrough for us came when we realized that the data is actually out there. In most cases, those critical issues in supply chains and at suppliers are actually represented and available in publicly available data. And this is where Prewave comes in. Because at Prewave, we use artificial intelligence in order to analyze those publicly available sources like social media and news media data in 50 plus languages, in order to identify those critical risks, disruption risks and ESG risks in the supply chains of our clients. Let me give you an example from one of our customers. A Chinese supplier of them went bankrupt on the 17th of November 2018. And until this day, there's not a single English language news coverage about this incident. We sent the first risk alert to our customer more than 2 months in advance, alerting them based on the bank accounts of this company being frozen and a report in Chinese news sources. A few days later, the employees of that company complain on Chinese social media that they haven't been paid wages for several weeks. And a few days later, then the company eventually goes bankrupt, but at this point, no longer to the surprise of our customer. Now at Prewave, we cover the full spectrum of both ESG risks in supply chains, but also disruption risks in supply chains. One of our main customers is the Volkswagen Group, who has been using Prewave since 2019 to monitor more than 10,000 tier 1 suppliers, but also several thousand indirect tier 2 and beyond suppliers. And there we've implemented our monitoring system for that large numbers of suppliers. The Volkswagen Group conducted a benchmarking where they compared the outcomes and the results that Prewave provided them against other data sources, for instance, grievance reports. And they identified that 95% of those cases were also identified by Prewave through media monitoring, but 50% of them well in advance, sometimes even more than 2 months in advance, because we monitor the local source, and sometimes it just takes time to reach the central purchasing department. Now, in the German Supply Chain Act, companies are required to run risk analysis for all of their direct tier 1 suppliers. And at Prewave, we also apply our artificial intelligence-based approach in order to enable our customers to conduct this risk analysis and to derive appropriate measures based on an automated risk analysis. With our customers, we can perform a legally compliant risk analysis for more than 50,000 suppliers in 3 months, or for 10,000 suppliers in 4 weeks or less. And in that way, we accompany our customers along the entire supply chain risk management lifecycle, from supporting them in identifying risks to evaluating and prioritizing those risks, but also to take action and to report on those risks. And that's how we get so many happy customers. And I invite you to reach out to us as well. Hit me up at harold@prewave.ai or info@prewave.ai. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harald. Wonderful. What I learned is you are a very global company in terms of your data, because you're looking worldwide for this data. And that is, in, as far as I know, in over 50 languages in 150 countries. So social media, somebody by themselves doesn't or cannot do that. You have to take the advantage of technology. And if you can, or if you are able to use information, you have an advantage in your business, and that is something we can reach with your company. Thank you very much.
True. Thank
And
you.
this is also having the next startup, which is Sopedio from Dresden, and Markus is there, and he's also into a field of machine to machine, so away from the people and a little bit more to the difficulties of communication between and also the collaboration of machines. So a lot of technology now we can learn here. And please, Markus, where is the advantage? Where's the game changer of having you in a company between solutions?
Great introduction. Thank you, Stephan, for that. Thanks also to Katharina for being here today. Yes, my name is Markus from Sopedio, and Sopedio stands for Supply Chain Electronic Data Interchange Optimization, or like you can see here already on the so far blank screen still, trouble-free electronic communication in the supply chain. So, like the other startups, you're looking also first of all at you and your clients, and we have then the supplier and the customers in focus. So the first part which we are working is what commonly is known as EDI, which is business as usual, but our unique point or game changer, like Stephan said, is that if you want to receive or if you want to send PDF documents, which are not electronic messages, as you know, as real electronic messages, then we have developed a tool which we call the fingerprint technology, with smart algorithms, which allows first in time to extract 100% correct data from a PDF and transform it in the format you or your customer want to receive. So no OCR is on the stage here. It's a new technology. And basically that helps you if a customer wants an electronic invoice from you, but also to companies which are already practicing EDI, but still you never have 100% supplier which can supply you with electronic messages. But everybody today can send you a PDF delivery note, for example, so that we can transform it in the format you would like to have. Well, the second part where we are working is a very important part, which is product master data, first of all. And product data you receive from your suppliers, and you also give further to your customers. And it would be nice if all master data would be right, but it seems that this still today is a big problem. So if you receive incorrect purchase orders, and even if you receive them in a pure electronic format, the machine to machine, like Stephan said before, will not work automatically. Some people will manually correct it, and that's mostly because of incorrect master data. So we help in this case if you try to get your supplier master data correct, or we help your customers to get your master data correct, and we do this in a one-click import at the end, because that's the important point. It has to be as easy as possible, so the people are doing it, and if it's done, then the processes do work trouble-free and do not need any more manual interactions. Yeah, last but not least, the third part where we have our unique services are in the area of product documents. So if you want or need to receive electronic product documents, which mainly, of course, in the more regulative area, like instructions for use or master safety sheets or similar documents like this, or you want to give it to your customers, then we have this service also at your disposition. And it's an audit-proof exchange platform, since we are here in the regulative area. And additionally, we have also communication included. First of all, also push info service, so you or your customer are always informed about what's new, what new versions of documents, and etc. Well, it's web-based, it's certified by the German TÜV IT, and it can be even configured. Yeah, if you put that all together and you want some keywords, then we are working the master data management or data quality management as operational support, or more important, even the procedural optimization. Order to cash, procure to pay are important, still today important keywords. And business intelligence as artificial intelligence are the fields we are supporting and working with. And well, at the end, what we heard in the opening statement, we, with our services, we help you for operational efficiency. But the end is time savings, reflects cost reductions, is more stable processes, more transparency, especially also when we talk about big data. You need correct data in the base, otherwise they are not big, they are false data. And that operational efficiency we are supporting brings sustainability, so important in nowadays. Well, and that's then my second slide. I would be happy if you contact for me. I'm really open to all ideas and discussions. Stephan, I'm more or less in time, and thank you for... Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Markus, thank you very much. And you see me with a smile in my face when you're talking about big data and fail data. So also big data could be fail data. And this is something which is, we know everything about it. If you have bad data, you have to clean the data. And I learned from your solution, there is a one-click cleaning machine you have there. And that is something which is important. And the second thing, which is also kind of new for me, is PDF is more than just a document for human being. It also carries information, important information for machines to communicate to each other. So another very good information here. Thank you very much so far, Markus. We come to our last but not least startup, which is Titan from Switzerland. Oliver is with us here, and he is also an expert in big data. And because supplier scouting is also important to have big data at hand, not false data or fail data. But why is it so difficult to work with big data in terms of finding the right suppliers?
Hi, Stephan. Thank you for the intro. Yeah, why is it so difficult? Yeah, this is what I try to explain, you know. Also, at first, we are a startup. We are in the market with a 3 years history. We started as a corporate startup 2019. Out of 6, this is the Swiss Stock Exchange, and then we worked together with Roland Berger and so on. And during the last 2 years after our incorporation, we got already a few clients, and we are growing here with our solution. What is our offering? We offer big data for procurement, also the detailed and curated company profiles. We have a solution for sales, also market lead development, and M&A, these opportunity assessments out of it. And all is related to these company profiles, which are fed with certain informations. You can have our solutions or a solution as a data API only. Also when you have already an existing procurement suite or sales or anything else, and you can just take this data and enrich your existing supplier base. Or when you're maybe a more small, medium-sized company, you can use our GUI, also user interface, with certain workflow features, which then are built from us and then customized to your needs. When we go forward, what is our value proposition related exactly these company profiles? Also one thing is we have this data warehouse, the state-of-the-art, high quality data stored. Is a plug-and-run solution. We are based on 4 profile types of these companies, these profiles. Also you can have the whole group, the premium data from one legal entity. You can have a light version or even a basic version of these company profiles stored and managed. And out of this, we provide with our Titan taxonomy and a rating scheme, more or less, also in the area of capabilities, in the area of risk, certain informations out of it, and this then more or less with our analytics features in the platform. That means the data solution is also affordable. When you go in the market as of today, you buy some data from third-party suppliers, double. They are sometimes not price optimized. You have these overlappings. Again, I come to this curation and efficiency, these optimizations, and we do all this for you. And then, as also already said, we have these small, medium-sized enterprise solutions, also discovery, compare, lists, also lists like market lists, like your preferred suppliers, like your from certain software assets or products you use, and then when you find what you need and compare and list it, you come to the negotiation, and you can have the single negotiation, the e-tendering, and so on. Also that means on one hand, the data again, the data warehouse, the intelligence, and the buying of this data. And on the other hand, these workflow-oriented features related to this. And this ecosystem, more or less, this is what we are looking at. Also you see here again, the interface, the data backbone with the profiles and the features, and then had this one API, right? What you have with us, because we bring this all together, and there you have significant cost reductions. You are again complementary to the established tool providers in the market. If you go to these one-fits-all solutions, the supplier networks, and so on, it's all about this quality of data. And there we see definitely one of our USPs. What are the data points from these companies? Is master data, commercial data, risk, and of course the raw data. And we clustered this in 10 areas, right? This 1,250 data points per legal entity, what we already have. And again, based on the taxonomy, on our standards. And 8 of them we have already. Also like people and organization, product, services, financials, and so on. And we work but also on workforce and assets, which are still missing two parts there. Also data sources, what we use, data feeds of course, we can integrate all the big players here with our APIs, and we can manage the life cycle. We have Titan data as our own. We have web crawler technology, machine learning, and we work on these technology-driven topics. We have survey data, what we collect, especially for the risk area, but also for customer-specific needs. We have data uploads, of course. You have the data what we generate, but also your private personal data, what you integrate in the company profile, also your existing supplier data out of your existing workflows, right? This will be complemented. These are the these are the 4 sources. And finally, this brings the data power into consideration. And this valuable information what we provide. We have the data quality, also this, again, curation, the life cycle topics and all this thing. And then based on this, the data control, not only from an API perspective, also from other sides like user rights and permissions and so on. How many profiles we have on our platform? Also our approach is based on city regions. We started with the German part, with Munich, Stuttgart, Vienna, etc. You see here from 6 countries, and we grow already to 20 countries. And this is what we anyhow do. Also every 6 to 8 weeks, a new city region, you know, the top 100 suppliers from there and the benchmarking and everything around that. But on the other hand, when you have a big supplier base, for example, with the basic profiles, we can onboard 10, 15,000 suppliers also within 2 to 3 months in this onboarding project, and fit this together based on your individual needs, depends on your size of the organization. And of course, we are based on global data. Also, exceptional market data intelligence unlocked, not only a slogan, it's really a promise from our end. And when you have questions, I'm very happy to answer them. Just contact me, and thank you for your time, and I hand over back to Stephan.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you very much. And thank you all for that wonderful last hour. We are more or less in time, and let's just say me some last words, which is we in procurement, we are in a wonderful position to use all that data. We are maybe one of the most using departments in having these data. So please do something with that, and please contact all these wonderful startups. We have been over 300 people in our audience today, which is a wonderful success for Supplytechs. Again, come again for next time, and take care for the rest of the day. Bye-bye.